What's golden, y'all? It's Brian. So back with another episode of Trial and Error and adjusting my camera as we get along. All right. So here's what we're going to do today, because this week we promised you guys that we would kind of get into the mythology of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. And so we want to hold our promise to do that. But there's a lot more pressing issues that are going on in the world right now. And so basically, we're making kind of a unified show regarding Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and what's going, and the collapse of the American narrative, and the mythology surrounding that, specifically as it pertains to what's happening in Minnesota. And Minnesota is kind of a microcosm for what's the rest of the country probably needs to kind of start preparing for, specifically if you are in one of these states that's going to be targeted by this entire ICE thing. And so both of these are really about mythology. But we're going to talk about the frameworks that Rich Dad Poor Dad puts out there, where it frames the entire concept of getting money and things along those lines. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm a business owner, but where it ends up becoming people's personality, and not understanding that a lot of this book it's a parable, for the lack of a better word. It really is just a parable about money, in the lines of, other books that have been about money that are just parables. And for those that don't know, a parable is kind of a story that you're supposed to draw a lesson from. Think about like Aesop's fables, things along those lines. And so the way that we frame Rich Dad Poor Dad, people end up making it their personality, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about last week, with the entire 48 laws of power, and how people make that their kind of personality, and not look at it as something that is supposed to be applied in specific contexts or specific frameworks. So the reason why these two topics go together is because they're both about mythology. The American narrative, the mythology surrounding the American narrative, and what happens when a country stops believing the stories that it tells about itself, and narrowly targeting the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing. Understand, this is not a takedown of the book. We're not here to denigrate or insult the book. In case Mr. Kiyosaki wants to get litigious, we're not here to do that. But what we are here to do is talk about how this book is used in the context of the self-help movement and a lot of other things, and why you need to take it with a grain of salt. So that's what we're starting out with, and then we're going to move into the hot topic of the day, which is what's happened in Minnesota over the weekend, and realistically just kind of giving you me and Fearless's perspective on it, because that's all we can do at this point in time, is offer perspective on it. And if you don't align with it, get your own show. If you don't align with what we are trying to do, or align with our perspective, that's fine. And up until a point, we'll bring you in, and we can kind of discuss it and things along those lines. But at the end of the day, if you don't like what we're saying, you can always get your own show, launch your own podcast, and get that ball rolling. Okay. So this episode is about story collapse, and the same pattern shows up in money culture, politics, immigration, media. People aren't just reacting to events, but they're reacting to narratives failing. And one of the things I used to tell my workers when I did case management is, when you upset somebody's worldview, when you agitate it in a way that they can't recover from, you're risking unleashing something primal in them, because you're upsetting their entire perspective and understanding of the world. And you're taking it and turning it on its head, and that can be very challenging to people. And so invariably, when we start talking about collapse of narratives and things along those lines, it's going to create a situation where people get upset. And so we're just kind of dealing with it. Like I said, we'll start out with Rich Dad Poor Dad and move into the Minnesota thing. Okay, so Rich Dad Poor Dad is a modern myth. It's a parable, right? Am I being accurate when I say this? It's kind of a parable, not like a financial manual or how-to manual. Hey, Fearless.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I had to get my mic adjusted. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem, no problem. And so we're talking about Rich Dad Poor Dad as kind of this modern American mythology that's kind of taken legs and built an entire ecosystem of a product line, and all this other stuff. Um, and invariably, when I talk to somebody who's just starting to get into the, self help, I'm going to get my finances under control. Typically, somebody along the way has suggested Rich Dad Poor Dad. And
Mhm.
just like the 48 Laws of Power is very contextual in the way that we need to use this book. Um, Understanding that Rich Dad doesn't exist. Rich Dad is kind of a plot device to move this guy's story forward. That's fine, you know. Um,
So, um, so let me ask you, how do we know that he doesn't exist?
um, it's been stated, and I think he's even mentioned it. Um, but that's a good choice. That's a
Because
good.
I remember him talking about it before, and I remember him saying, and again, I didn't. I watched a video of him, and this is before AI, of him saying himself that the rich dad did exist, but he didn't want to be put in any magazines. He didn't want his name mentioned or anything. The principles were one thing, but
Mhm.
he himself did not want to be put out there like that. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that seems to go with a lot of really successful people in those particular times. They didn't want to be known like that, like we do today. That if you're rich, I need everybody to know my name. They were like, "No, I'm good. I don't want you knowing nothing about me." You know what I mean? And Robert Kiyosaki is what? He's in his 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
or whatever. So that means that his mentor would have been what, 30s, 40s years old, or whatever. But I mean,
Well,
so go ahead.
so basically, what Kiyosaki's admitted is that Rich Dad isn't a person. It's like a composite character, a specific archetype built from a lot of people that allegedly mentored him and things along those lines. So there's no like singular Rich Dad. It's kind of a composite of people that he's encountered that he sees as mentors.
See,
Uh,
then that's different than what he said before.
yeah, and that's why, and this kind of goes into one of my issues with the book. There is so much stuff in there that doesn't hold up to basic scrutiny, which is fine. I guess my thing is admit that go ahead and admit that this is a parable and you're just giving help advice and you're using the Rich Dad Poor Dad as a narrative framing mechanism as opposed to this is a real person that actually existed and this is what they said. And so, when people started pressing him on it, because there was a huge thing when people started pressing him on it, then he finally admits, yeah, it's kind of a composite character that I've put together to represent all these other people. And so then it leads to the question like, okay, so which is it? Because you 10 toes down initially before internet really started interneting. um before people started getting out there on the internets, um looking things up and verifying stuff. It was, yeah, he's a real person. And then as soon as people start pressing and saying, okay, this timeline doesn't match up and some of the stuff you're saying um is impossible to happen because this thing wasn't invented at the time when this specific story was being told. um then it's, well, he's a composite of people. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I think maybe that might be the first issue we take with it. We're not discounting the value of information, because some of it is actual kind of one of those common sense, some common sense that's not so common kind of things. But when we're looking at it from that perspective, um, it would have been more beneficial if he came out and said, "Yeah, it's a composite character. Like this is somebody I made up in my brain in terms of all the other mentors. He's kind of a combination of all these other mentors." So that's what I'll throw in
Okay.
there.
All right. So I have this thing going,
Yep.
and Okay, so I'm going to basically put you guys on to what I'm looking at. So if you give me a second, we are going to let's go to the principles. Make sure you guys can see them. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So the first one is lesson number one, which is the rich don't work for money, and the example is Tom works overtime every weekend for extra cash. His friend buys an ATM machine for a barbershop that makes $300 a month. Tom is tired. The ATM machine is not. And again, so the first part is the mindset, which is how poor, middle class, and rich people think differently.
Hmm.
So again, this is this isn't too far fetched from anything else that you'll read anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like it's not. It's so it's not like a. It's not an analogy. Well, I guess it is an analogy. It's not really a metaphor because this is a real thing.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a lot. That's really how a lot of us think in general. A lot of us think that we need to trade our time for money, that we need to work those extra hours, that we need to do this and the other, as opposed to just charging. So it's kind of like let's look at it like this: if you need $5,000 and you're like, okay, you sell a particular widget or you provide a particular service, you can either break that up and say, okay, I need 4 people or 5 people to give me $1,000 each, or you could pay one person that can go out and hire these individuals to do it all for you,
Hmm.
and then you still get to collect the money itself. So what he's saying is that you might make a little bit more than $300 for working 8 hours, but that ATM machine is going to bring you in money every single month, and all you have to pay for is the upkeep. That's it.
Yep. And so,
That's it. So again, like I said, Tom is tired, but the ATM machine's not.
mhm. So, and the thing is, so like I use myself as an example. So, I do video services for people. And one of the things I learned, after one kind of, it was a disaster brought upon my own making. One, by not asking for enough money on the front end, but two, not using leverage to bring in other people and not understanding, not being able to step outside and see the bigger picture. So what I'm saying is this: a lot of times when video production companies will bid out jobs, the big dogs, they will uh, set out, they will go out there and say, okay, what do you want to have happened? Right? Like what kind of video do you want? What kind of branding kit are you looking for and stuff like that? And they'll get all the information and then they'll throw out a price point. And in them throwing out the price point, basically what they're saying is this is how much it's going to cost to produce all this stuff. And as soon as they get that money secured, they're not thinking, okay, so now I need to produce this. They're thinking, I need to go hire these people to deliver. I need to hire an editor and a videographer, somebody to do graphic design and stuff. And so they're figuring out how much it's going to cost to pay these individuals, whether they have them in-house or out-house. They have them in-house, how much is going to cost in man hours to get this done, or if they have to use freelancers, how much does it cost for each freelancer and what's their rate? Okay.
Right.
And so when I first started, that was a perspective I did not have. I thought that people would bid these jobs out, come out and be the cameraman, maybe pay somebody to do grip, maybe pay somebody to do like sound and stuff like that. um but I didn't think that, as I didn't see it myself as the project coordinator. I saw myself as the vendor. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so, I burnt myself out of videography because I had not adopted the perspective of I need to hire an editor and hire a lighting guy and hire a sound guy and build that into the costs that I'm handing to the client. And so, with I'm doing now with the stuff I'm planning, planning out the studio and stuff. It's me like this weekend was researching, okay, what editors are kind of local so that if I have them do something, I can actually go and say, all right, I need you to turn this around, and I have a direct person to call as opposed to doing a lot of the stuff through Fiverr and things and kind of balancing it out. But um, figuring out how I'm going to actually pay the people and then building my pricing structure around that so that I'm not responsible for all of this stuff. Only thing I'm responsible for is delivering the final product and making sure that the editor is on the same page and has the deliverables when I need them. That makes sense. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of the same thing as buying leverage. Um, you know, getting yourself in the position to buy leverage. And I think one of the things is um, it's easy for us, like for me now that I've have 10 years in videography and stuff. um it's easy for me in my mind to put that together, but I had to put in the work to get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is why I need to do this.
Right.
Because for me, I'm like, okay, I take this job, right? Damn, I gotta pay an editor $480 to edit this thing. Man, it's $480. I only charge 500, so I'm only going to make X, Y, and Z, which is stupid. I should have charged you know more so I can build in the editor and still keep my margin. And so that's just it's a different way of viewing it. And a lot of times when you are in that, because I've talked to people that are looking to transition out of traditional jobs into business ownership. That is the first conversation. You need to understand that just you're used to getting paid per hour or paid X amount per year, and that means there's a minimum amount of hours that you have to show up in building and put in to make your certain amount. um, that's not how business runs.
Right.
Because as a business owner, your job, your work day is a 24-hour day, depending on how you do it, how you manage it. And so when you're actually working on a project, you need to make sure that you're accounting for, you're going to put in a 24-hour cycle on this, and you need to charge appropriately. I hope that made sense. but
No, I
um
got it.
but yeah, that's kind of what it is. And so it's an interesting parable to talk about. Okay, so he can buy the vending machine or buy the ATM machine, and the ATM machine runs silently, and all it needs is you have to hire a repairman to come in and fix it every once in a while, as opposed to hiring somebody and paying their insurance and paying payroll taxes and all that other stuff.
Okay. So like this, so the second lesson, and this is why I teach financial literacy. And again, this is still part of the first thing or whatever is that. So the example that it gives is that two nurses make $75,000 a year. One buys a SUV and a bigger house. One buys a small rental condo. And same income, different literacy. So, and I think that this is a part where people start kind of like, huh. And again, I like the way that he said literacy because literacy literally means that you understand something.
Hmm.
So, financial literacy is understanding finance or money or how it's generated.
Hmm.
So, one person purchases, a bigger house and an SUV. Another person goes and buys a small rental condo. First and foremost, I think that number one, it depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Two, it depends on your credit. But again, if you can buy a big house and an SUV, you can probably afford a small condo. But even with that, it's still going to depend on how much money we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if you can't find anybody to live in that place, you're going to be paying for that for quite some time.
Right.
You know, So again, and then so it says 10 years later, SUV nurse still is still working. The condo nurse has 3 properties and options. Still, same income, different literacy.
it, there's an element of it where, because this is the part I'm gonna throw in here. Does the
Please.
does the big house SUV nurse want to be a landlord? Do they like being a nurse? Do they like their life? Do they enjoy the big house? Do they like driving their SUV? And so that's where, for me, it starts to break apart because, and it does come down perspective, right? For some people, that at the money part of it is kind of the sole determining factor of what they do. For other people, they may not be driven by that. She may like being a nurse, right? And so she might like being a nurse better than she likes being a landlord. And so, because I've done the rental properties, that can turn into a nightmare in and of itself. Um, and if that's what she wants, I guess that's the side of it. If that's what both parties want, then perfect. Shit, I don't care, right?
Mhm.
But it's almost like that's the context that's missing. And yes, it's hypothetical. It's hypothetical, but if we apply it to real life, you know, some people that having the properties, that sounds really appealing, and not having to do the thing. Entrepreneurship ain't for everybody. And Fearless and I have talked about this all the time. Running a business is not for everybody. Some people like having their job, having that consistency. They even like their job, you know.
Right.
Um, for them going to work, there's nothing better than the job that they have. Not everybody is in the same place where they hate their 9 to 5. So that's what I'll throw in there.
Hey,
Um,
hold on one sec. Let me. Perfect. I just found a better thing, and then we can kind of play around with this. Hold on, give me 1 second.
okay.
Okay, boom. So we'll do this instead,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of just go in and talk about because then you can see it better on the. You can see it better. Our audience can see kind of what we're talking about a little bit better.
Yep.
So right now we're talking about um, Robert Greene's, not Robert Greene,
Robert
Robert
Kiyosaki.
Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And right now we're kind of bouncing all around, but right now we're on employee and we're talking about investing and whether a person wants to invest in anything or not. Because there's some people, believe it or not, like Brian just said, like having a job.
Mhm.
They like their 9 to 5. They like putting in those 40 hours. If they could make more money, they would love to. They wouldn't turn it down. But if they gotta work, or if they gotta make money, they would rather somebody else deal with the pressures of
Right.
paying them, and then they're just responsible for paying their taxes. That's it,
Right.
right? And then you have self-employment, which is a lot of what I do, um, which is you own a job, which yes, so technically I own a job for the most part.
Mhm.
And then business owner, you own a system that works for you.
Yep.
So that would be like bookstore, uh, studio
Mhm.
type thing that you bring people in and they pay to utilize your services, right?
Right.
That's kind of self-employed and business owner. And eventually you want your money to go to work for you. So
Right.
that's stocks, that's bonds, that's real estate, that's um, investing in other companies, that's being an angel investor in other upcoming businesses. The hell,
Mhm.
that's somebody having a good idea in the neighborhood and investing money in that.
Right.
Investing does not just mean stocks and bonds and having a huge portfolio or real estate. It could just be your next door neighbor is absolutely amazing at making cookies, and they like to start up a mobile bakery.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So maybe you invest in buying a truck. Maybe you invest in the first couple months in one of those what are those kitchens? One of
Ghost
those
kitchens.
one of those ghost kitchens that they go in and do this stuff. You pay for the marketing, advertising, and they put in the sweat equity. And then maybe at first, you set up a structure where you make this amount of money or whatever only when you break even. And then you guys can talk about a deal. But that's what a lot of this stuff is.
Well, and let's look at B because we're talking about that one. You can actually invest in your own business where you start making the money, and instead you put yourself on a salary, right? But you keep your salary low and dump a lot of that money back into building out the business and making sure that you can make your system work better. You get
Yeah,
better equipment, you upgrade your location, you make your customer experience better. Like you're pouring the money back into the business
yeah.
to build it out so that because here's the thing.
And it
We t-
comes, go ahead, keep
uh,
going.
business great businesses are built to be sold, and so basically whether you want to sell your business or not, you're making it a very attractive business for somebody to buy, right? You're investing in your business, and your business is a durable business. It spits out cash for you whenever you need it. um, that is an investment in of itself. And I think a lot of times people get too caught up in, specifically like nowadays, literally, I get like 5 different emails. Somebody's inviting me to day trade. You know what I'm saying? They want to teach me how to day trade, and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, I've done stocks. I've been doing stocks since like 20, uh, 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 2006, right? But they're going to teach me how to day trade. And in their mind, the thing that they're selling is, well, I'm going to teach you how to day trade, and you're going to be able to just live off of the dividends. Um, the reality of that world is you're going to need at least $1 million in cash to even be kind of viable just to invest and live off dividends if you're only doing stock markets and things like that and bonds and things along those lines. And so that's the piece they don't tell you. Day traders put in work. So they basically, a day trader is self-employed. You have a job that you do. You have to, and it's day trading is directly tied to the amount of work the amount of time that you put into it, right? Most day traders, you're waking up when the foreign markets open up, and so you're up, at three o'clock in the morning to be available for when those foreign markets open up, and you're grinding for 10 to 12 hours, and more times than not, being good at day trading is kind of it does boil down to luck, because a lot of times, and I know this as being an investor, the stock market specifically, it's the biggest emotion tracking machine on the planet. It's based on how people feel about specific businesses and how they feel about the economy in general. It's
Hmm.
not based on anything solid. It's how they feel about it. And so you're trying to predict public sentiment on something. And so I'm saying all that to say this. You can absolutely be a B who also is an I. Does that make sense?
I mean, well, yeah, but and I would think that those two things kind of synergistically work together.
They do.
That you consider that you literally want to, and that you want those things kind of circulating each other. But here's another really fun part about this: you eventually, if you really think about it, want to go back to E.
Yeah.
Eventually, that's kind of where you want to go.
Okay.
And I'll explain to you.
All right.
So technically, if let's say you have $1 million in your account, right? Let's
Hmm.
say you sold your business, you have $1 million. Did you know that you now qualify for Medicaid?
Hmm.
You now qualify for food stamps because you don't have a job.
Right.
You don't have one. And let's just say that you have all these things going. And so let's just say that because of your investment, you have a LLC or some type of corp or whatever off to the side
Hmm.
that pays you a fee, right?
Right.
And let's say that that fee is minimum wage. Again, if they come in and they look and they say, well, how much money do you make? And you have pay stubs and this and the other, then technically you would qualify for food stamps and Medicaid.
Yeah.
And you could be a multimillionaire.
Well,
And you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So so again, and there's so many different ways to look at this. There's so many different ways to play this. And again, this is what financial literacy is. This is also another reason why, like somebody like um, Tesla, Elon Musk, will take shares and he'll basically go to any bank and say, "I will give you as collateral however many of these shares,"
Right.
right? And they will give him a line of credit. Why a line of credit instead of a loan? Because a loan you got to pay that back. A line of credit is just yours.
Hmm.
And the other thing is with a line of credit, it's non-taxable.
Yep.
You got to pay taxes on that. So if I get $100 million, that's $100 million tax free.
Right.
So why would I not? Once and again, if I what was the word? If I renege on this,
Hmm.
then you just keep those stocks. But I still got 1,001 more, or in this case, 1,000,001 more.
Right.
So I'll never go broke doing this, and you never go broke because you always get your money. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So again, so ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of again just taking this quadrant and just spinning it all the way back. So no matter where you are, there you are, and you can make it work for yourself.
Okay.
There's been people that were employees their whole entire lives, but because they invested um 30% of their paychecks for 20 years into a 401 account or some type of IRA, Roth account or IRA account, they're able to retire comfortably. You know,
Yeah.
so again, all I'm saying is that you can take this and you can still play with it no matter where you go with it. Right?
So, right.
At least I think so.
Yeah, and I see where you're going with it. I think um there's, once you start getting into like where you're thinking, once you move to, S, B, and I, it gives you a better vantage point of what the opportunities are with E, if that makes sense. You know what I'm
No, it
saying?
does.
It gives you the lived experience. And that's one of the things the thing we have to discuss is a lot of people, and this is one of the things that has been my bugaboo. I've talked about it on my personal channels and stuff. This concept of passive income. And a lot of the people that lock in on this and harp on this concept of passive income um, come from the rich dad school of doing things. And so, and I've talked about this from a sports standpoint, on the sports training business. And one of the things we encounter are people that want to win without competing. They want to shortcut their way or hack their way to victory without having to do the dirty work of competing. And they're trying to shortcut the grind in the process. And so a lot of times when you hear people talk about the passive income, yeah, this person may be earning passive income. Do you know how much time they spend, how much time they dedicated, how much money and resources they spent to build and invest in that piece of passive income? Do you know how much
Right.
time they have to do to prune and do maintenance on that passive income?
Right.
They're looking at it like, oh, well, I can just not do anything, and if I have my passive income stream, it's going to set up and just automatically feed me. That is not how passive income works.
No.
And the phrasing of passive income drives me insane. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, passive income is great. Theoretically, it sounds fantastic. But even if you own a portfolio of houses and rental properties, right? You still have to put in the time making sure that the maintenance is done, making sure that everything's up to code. Like there's an entire layer of work that you need to do. And if you're not doing it yourself, you're paying other people to do it and you're supervising them, which requires time and energy and stuff. So it's not necessarily passive. It's active income. It's just less active than people will ascribe it to be. And I think a lot of times when we talk about this book, and I don't know, I can't do, passage and verse on it, but I know a lot of people that are adherents to this book harp on this concept of passive income. And I fell into it when I first started too. So,
Nah, yeah, I feel the same way on that. And I mean, yeah. And again, so here are the pros of it because I just shot those up. So the pros and cons of passive income. So first and foremost, what is passive income? Passive income is where your money is making money for you
mhm,
without you doing anything. Okay, that's what passive income is.
mhm,
So that means that if I were to write an ebook on how to make your first $5,000 selling widgets, and I
mhm,
put that online, and I had this evergreen type thing that I put a lot of money into that sends this commercial out every however long to this group of people.
mhm.
Passive is where you're make people are buying that ebook constantly,
Right.
constantly, constantly, and then you're putting them down this funnel. But we're not even going to talk about the funnel. We're just talking about people seeing your face and buying your book.
Right.
Okay, for $5. That book sells all the time, constantly.
Mhm,
That's passive income. Now, what Brian is talking about, and we'll get to this in a minute, is that it doesn't talk about all the work you have to put in at the beginning
mhm.
to even get to the point where it's passive. You, however long it takes you to write the book, and now with Chat GPT, it's not going to take you long at all to write the book at all. Just saying. Um, so it takes you, let's say it takes you 2 days,
Mhm.
right, to write it. Well, now you have to market it. Well, who are you
Yes.
going to market it to? Well, let's say that you sell widgets to small businesses. Okay, but wonderful. Which kind of small business? Because the more narrow you are, the better off you'll be. So
Right.
let's say that you sell it to people who work with glue. So if you work with glue, this product, this book is really going to help you. So now I custom tailor everything that I do to sell to people who work with glue and glue accessories,
Mhm.
right? Well, it costs money for marketing that stuff. And I don't know how much, what is that? AdWords,
Google Ads.
Google ads, Facebook
Mhm,
ads, uh, TikTok, Instagram, just depending on where they are, that's where you send it,
mhm.
right? Um, you can make a bunch of QR codes, hand them out all over the place. But again, all of that costs money. And at first you may only get 3 or 4 people,
Mhm.
maybe. right? But then eventually, and it might take a year or so for it to really start to click in and people start knowing who you are. So then when they look you up on Google, you're one of the first people that they see.
Yep.
That doesn't come from, you can't pay to get that.
No.
That only comes from putting in the work. So anytime somebody says that something's passive income, it doesn't work that way. You have to put that work in first. And then the passive, if you're lucky enough, will eventually come based off the work that you put in previous.
Right. You're either going to pay time equity, you're going to pay sweat equity, you're going to pay equity, which is money. um if you're trying to run your own ads, I'm just telling you, as a marketing person who does this, is done paid research for ads for Google and Facebook, taking classes on how to do it. I've been doing it for years. um when you first start out, you're absolutely going to screw it up, and you're going to lose money on the front end as part of your investment into learning how these ad platforms work. Like, there's an investment that you're going to make on the front end. You're going to lose money to test out ads because you have no data set to work with. You don't know exactly who's going to reply to it. You're not going to know what words connect with your audience or any of that stuff when you're building this stuff out. And so you're going to invest one way or the other. And like with the ebook, you constantly got to be promoting that thing.
All the time.
You always have to.
All the time.
And so whether your promotion mechanism is going to be at the top of the funnel is a YouTube channel that talks specifically about what that book covers and funnels them down to the book, that's, you got to make content for it, right? And so people's idea of what passive income actually is and what it looks like is based on a fantasy of,
Yeah,
I'm going to make money by doing nothing. And that doesn't work. Now, you can make money by doing less than other
correct.
people. Once you get the skin in the game and figure out how these systems actually interface with one another, you can make money doing less, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why people are losing their jobs today.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally because companies to figure out. And here's the thing: it's so crazy because even if you look at McDonald's, right? And so before I get into this, hold on, let me write this down. Hold on. So McD's, okay, because I have my point. Because I want to show you guys what um what passive income looks like in real time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show you. But before I do, let's touch on this right quick. So, what are the pros and the cons of passive income?
Mm-hmm.
The pros are making money without clocking in. Example, rentals, dividend stocks, um, YouTube, ad revenue, right? Second thing, freedom of time. Income isn't tied to your hours,
Mm-hmm.
it's tied to what you do. Scalable. One rental turns into two rental, turns into five, right? The other thing is that one video turns into hundreds, and that hundreds turn into a pretty nice stream of income.
Right.
But even with that, let me throw this out there. Even with that, it's based on what YouTube is willing to pay you.
Yeah.
Because now, if I'm not mistaken, is you get, what is it, $12 per 1,000 videos. Excuse me, not videos, views.
Well,
And that all depends.
right, it depends on what niche your video's in. So if you are in financial services or something that has where it's high ticket sales on the back end, so they can put ads for high ticket services in your stuff, it's going to be more. You're going to get paid more. But if you're just in the entertainment space, you're not going to get paid a heck of a whole lot per mil,
No,
because it's per 1,000 views. You're not going to get paid a heck of a whole lot per mil because the ads they can put in are for going to be lower ticket products.
right?
And so they're
Because
not going to spend as much.
correct, because you're, for the way that they put it, they're selling it to your demographic isn't really going to spend much money.
Right.
At least not on anything that's worth spending money on. Okay, so passive income pros, stress reduction, bills covered without panic, always a good thing. And
Mhm.
number 5, bills long term worth, assets grow while you sleep. Now, again, most of everything I just said is on the back end.
Mhm.
So these are all passive income on, what did I say? Say it with me, the back
Back in.
end. And it's not here, it's there. So here are the cons of it. So here's the thing. Number 1, off the bungee, not truly passive at first. Okay? Setup takes time, money, and learning, which means you're not going to know
Right.
shit yet, which means you're going to spend way more money figuring this out, setting it up, than you're going to ever make at
Mhm.
first with the money coming in. And depending on
Right.
your learning curve, if it takes you a year to learn it, then it's just going to take you a year to learn it. So that means all that
Right.
money, time, sweat, energy, tears, relationships, those are out the window. You don't get that back.
Yep.
But you do have the time and you have the learning. Okay. Number 2, requires upfront risk,
Mhm.
capital, effort, or both, time, energy, investment,
Mhm.
right? Sweat equity, like Brian said, money equity. These takes upfront risks, which means you may not ever see a return on this.
Mhm.
There may never be passive income for you, ever. Number 3, maintenance exists. Tenants call. So that means if you have a house, or let's say you got 5 houses, but let's say that you don't have a management team for those houses, and a pipe bursts. You know who has to pay for that? You do.
Mhm.
You know how, you know who has to fix that? You do. There you go. The market drops. So you have all this money. Oh my god, I'm making so much money. My portfolio looks like it has the chicken pox.
Yeah.
And then if something hits and the stock market just crashes. When I say crashes, I mean not, it's fucking dead.
Yeah. Well,
Worse, worse, worse than the worst. What was that? What was that? That
the the depression.
that worse than the depression.
Well, and so, and for me, I've done stocks for a long time. So when the market crashes, I look at it like, oh, everything's on sale. If you are brand new, and this is what I used to tell people, like people were trying to want me to teach them crypto and teach them stocks and things along those lines. I know how to do this stuff. Here's what the issue is. The question I would always ask is, are you willing to put in $1,000 and within 30 seconds watch that $1,000 turn into 250? Do you have that mental, do you have the discipline to not react and try to pull out your 250? Do you have the, if, because if you do, that means you can watch your $1,000 go from go down to 250, bounce back up to 750, and then be $2,000 at some point in the future. If you don't, you're going to pull it out at 250 and you're going to panic and pull it out. I've seen it in real time where somebody gets hustled into some kind of crypto thing and they don't really understand what an investor's mindset is, and so they put their money in, and then since the crypto markets are volatile, same thing with forex trading, currency markets. Since currency markets and crypto markets are volatile, they put their money in, and then their money absolutely takes a nosedive in the first couple of days. They panic and try to pull their money out,
Yeah.
and all they've done is cement that loss. So it goes from being a loss on paper to a loss in real life. And it's all because they're not disciplined enough to understand this is what the market does. And so you dollar cost average your way in, you put in, a little money here, put in a little money here and a little money here to build your position. And so if it takes a nosedive, you have the ability to say, okay, it's on sale now. I can buy more for the same amount of money. And then when it comes back up, I'm going to end up making more. That has how an investor's mind works. And that only comes from years of experience doing it. Because I've experienced it buying US steel. I'm just throwing out a stock that I had, buying US steel and watching it immediately take a nosedive. And it's hard to watch. You're watching your $5,000 go down to $1,000. But
right.
I also had enough, I had spent enough time analyzing thing and read enough books like, okay, this is painful, but this is going to only be temporary. It's going to bounce back up. And it did. It rebounded. But more times than not, people don't have that understanding about how these systems work. And so when it comes to the passive thing, you don't know in the winter, everybody's pipes busted at the same time. What if you have 5 properties and then in 3 of them, the pipes burst on the coldest day of the year?
Yeah.
Is the income passive at that
right.
point?
Or what happens if a person is that same rental, let's say the family went on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And there was nobody there. Pipes burst. All the stuff flooded.
Right.
Ideal, like stuff happens. Right. Or let's say that something happens to you another time is that content needs updates.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like you can't just do something over here and not think that you have to do it anymore. You still have to upkeep that thing. Again, another thing is that everything is going to be slow in the beginning. So at first, $100 a month feels small, but that $100 sometimes is going to turn in. It might go from 100 to 700 real quick. And then what? Can you keep that going for the next 3 years? And let's say that 700 turns into 1,500. Can you keep that going for another year? Easy to romanticize.
Yeah.
Social media sells a fantasy, not the work.
Oh, God.
Personally, I love working.
Mm-hmm.
When I was building my bookstore, I would be there from the crack of dawn till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning every day because I love the hustle. I love the bustle. I like building shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of guy that let's go. Let's see what we can do. Let's try this. Let's try that. And anybody who messes with me will tell you that I'm like a kid in a candy store when I'm trying to figure shit out. And the reason why I figure it out is because I don't mind fucking up.
Yeah.
And I'll fuck up a lot consistently in order to get my stuff down. Once I get it, I'll back off a little bit. But just figuring it out and understanding that I understand this thing that I like to call the gods of the gaps. Well, the gaps, the gods of the gaps, which is I know what I know, but I know that I don't know this over here. And in order for me to get over here from here to there, I need to fill in those gaps that I don't know. So a lot of the cases, I'm just trying to fill in the gaps. So therefore, I'll fuck up a lot in order for I'll mess up enough to learn how to fix my mistakes. If that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
I will think about that. I'll mess up enough to learn how to fix mistakes. Now, why do I do that? Because in real time, when mistakes are happening, I want to know how to fix them during the calm times or the when everything's at a rush. I want to know how to fix it then.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll mess up during the calm times so I can fix it during those times that I don't have the time to do it.
Yep.
To do it. It's just automatic. I know exactly what to do. Because I messed up on it enough. What I see a lot of is people they as long as it's working, I'm cool. How do
Yeah.
you get this thing to keep going when it's not working though?
Right.
When everything's turned to shit, how do you keep it moving? You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's what I like to do. But again, I'm not speaking for everybody. That's just me. And that's the reason why for somebody like me, I don't mind passive income. I love it. But I also don't have I'm also not working under this illusion that I don't have to worry about this over there.
Yeah.
That maintenance is still there. That upfront and again that the maintenance alone still gonna cost you.
Right.
And again, like Brian said, here let's touch back on this right quick. So if we're going from if we're going from this from small, excuse me, from self-employed, and we're going into business owner. As you're a business owner, you're going to have to keep investing back into your business.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: you may have to have a whole other job in order
Yeah.
to invest in your business.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Or you may have to
You,
have another business running to invest to make your business viable.
yeah. So all these things
Yeah.
work interchangeably together. They're all transactional, right? You're going to need them at some point. You're gonna need them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a fucking fact.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to sit here and tell you, well, hey, you're probably not gonna need that bullshit. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Well, and here's the thing, because it was kind of a pivot, but not really. I think what happens is specifically my takeaway, and I read this book like shoot, this is early into my stock career and all this other stuff. So this was probably like 2004, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
yeah,
Um, one of the things that struck me, even when I was like all into it, um, is the way that from the narrative, because we're going back to the kind of how this stuff is phrased in the book, the narrative surrounding being rich versus being poor. And rich people are smart, they're brave, they're hip to the world, they're wise, right? Poor people, they're trapped, they're ignorant, they're fearful. And that's the framing mechanism that story was told in. You know, poor dad was just, you know, like this incompetent person, like this kind-hearted but yet incompetent, naive person.
who was the school teacher, by the way?
I think the school teacher was poor dad.
Yeah, it was.
and and
It was his
uh
dad, apparently.
and is this naive person, while rich dad is this virtuous person. And I guess for me, um the framing of it is just off. Like the framing of it, like we talk about narratives, um and the fact we have a narrative bias, and more times than not our stories, even in our personal lives, the narratives we tell ourselves, there have to be good guys and bad guys. The idea that the poor dad, who's a school teacher who makes decent money, let's not, let's not making decent money. Now in Hawaii, I don't know how far that dollar goes, right? Because I think that's where the framing was. But I'm saying that to say this: the idea that poor dad is trapped and fearful and superstitious and ignorant and all this other stuff, while rich dad is, you know, everything. I don't like that framing, and that's just a personal thing, because I've met poor people who are better equipped to survive and thrive and are more resourceful than rich people, because they have to be in order to survive. And so while there may be, you know, a learning curve when it comes to having big piles of money. They once they master that learning curve, their resourcefulness from not having a lot is going to benefit them in ways that wouldn't benefit like a person who was born into it or has been far separated from it. They may not have those same kind of skills. And so when we talk about the framing of it, that's I think that maybe that's the part that kind of makes a lot of that book odious to me. Just it's the subtext, if that makes sense. Not the context of the book, it's the subtext of what's being said. You know, we
And
start
that's go ahead.
we
It's
start
all right.
applying moral judgments to people's pocketbooks.
You know, it's funny. I was listening to this sociology professor, and she was talking about that. And she said, and there was a question she was asked, and the question was, why are why are certain people so angry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she said for a long time, a certain group of people have been told and been sold a belief about themselves
Mm-hmm.
that they're better, blah blah blah, this and the other. And when you see somebody or another group of people that, despite every roadblock, despite every law, despite every sanction that you've thrown at them, they consistently keep rising above that concrete or those barriers that you keep setting. And what is happening is that these individuals at the top are upset with the people at the bottom
Mm-hmm.
because these people at the bottom are so, like you just said, they're self-sufficient
Mm-hmm.
because they had to be self-sufficient. They didn't have any other choice because you left them no other choice.
Right.
And, and then if I destroy your sense of how you look or how you are around other things, around other people, what happens? Well, you start becoming individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't like this because their their individualism is sparking each one of them individually. So instead of them rising up collectively, they're rising up individually, which is almost worse
Mm-hmm.
because they all have this separate ideology. But and the problem is that those barriers that we set no longer work for them.
Yeah.
So we have to keep coming up with more and more and more um, different ways to quash these individuals, but it's not working. And the problem is with the people at the top is that they don't understand how to live or how to function without less because they never had to deal with it.
Yeah. It's
So go ahead, is what?
jealous of the resilience,
Very much
intimidated
so.
by their resilience.
Very much so. And therefore, and again, like we said before, but my favorite line is victory has defeated you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And what did he say? I forgot the word. I put it in one of my essays, but when he said the, theatrics
Yeah.
and flair are from the uninitiated, but we're initiated though, aren't we, Bruce?
Yeah.
So the shit only works because you know more. But what happens when I know what you know
Well,
and I
it's
start to do what you do?
if we're looking at in that specific
Keep
movie,
talking.
that Batman and Bane dichotomy. Um, the dichotomy is you have somebody that was in the gutter, that their natural habitat was the gutter. That's where they were born. That's where they existed. And they had to learn the coping mechanisms to extract themselves from the gutter versus somebody who artificially put themselves in the gutter to achieve a certain end. So Bruce was, for the lack of better effort, he was the rich boy who had the resources to travel around the world and learn the martial arts and all the other stuff. Whereas you had Bane, who had always come from the bottom and always come from the gutter and ended up building himself up as a self-made man. And so basically he's saying that place that Bruce artificially put himself in, Bane had already existed there and already mastered that world. And so, the entire you merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it, raised by it. That's a deeper metaphor saying, I came from nothing. You came from everything. You made the choice to come into my world of where I'm coming from nothing. I was never afforded that choice. And so from birth, I've had to fight and climb up this ladder. Meanwhile, you decided one day that you wanted to step into my world. And even though you fully committed yourself to it, your experience in it will never be as robust as mine, who actually had to grow up in it and forge who I was in that specific frame. And so it's the concept of being intimidated by his resilience. And so when you deal with a poor person who's come into money and is actually good at it, that's really resilient. That's going to survive. They're ready to pivot. They're ready to turn on a dime, to adjust, to take things as they go, to endure hardships that people that were born into it will not. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the issues where we talk about people who have this generational wealth, heirs and stuff like that. Look at the Hilton brand, right? The heirs of the where you talk about who they were beforehand, who their forefathers were. Are they as resilient as the person that first started the Hilton brand hotel? You get where I'm going with that? Like,
Well,
that's why a lot of times people that are heirs and heiresses, they struggle when they have to sit in the head seat of whatever corporate enterprise they got.
there was a book that talked about this, a lot of it actually, and it might be surprising, but it's called Made in America by Sam Walton,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote it while he was actually dying,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to kind of leave something behind or whatever, and that's kind of what he talked about in his book. Was he was definitely afraid of his children not not having the same work ethic he had. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to build the company out when you're starting, but what happens when it's already a publicly traded company?
Yeah.
And that's also the reason why he had. That's also the reason why he had. What did he have? What did he have? He had all of his kids
Mm-hmm.
working at Walmart before they actually while they were in high school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing: Sam Walton had been in the space that he was in, doing what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
He had so again so it's not like he just fell into it. And this dude was in his 40s. I think it was like 44, 45, somewhere up around his mid to late 40s when he built the first Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I think before that it was called something else. But Walmart within itself, built in 1960 something or whatever, which is the same time Kmart and Target came out. I know because I actually researched the stuff. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. But here's another thing too, though, to kind of touch piggyback right off what you were talking about. The NBA, the NFL, and a lot of lottery winners. If you think about it, why is it that these individuals never, for the most part, build any schools? They don't build any banks. You see what I'm saying? How is it? And I started thinking about this, and again, I think we talked about this
Mm-hmm.
before. I think the reason why it is because a lot of them are told not to. They're told not to talk about it. And as far as pulling their money together to help build one, doesn't seem to work out. But as we think that it, you know what I'm saying? Think that
Yeah.
it will.
And I think one of the things is because we are talking about, because a lot of them get into, like, the ones I've seen really successful that have successful business ventures outside of sports end up buying like auto dealerships or franchises where you can basically be the person in charge and you just hire the other people to run it. You're not having to pool all your money together, because one of the dangers with that is not everybody has the same mindset, the same tolerance for risk. And even though they may have the same resources, they may not have the same risk tolerance. And so when you start getting into endeavors that don't generate money off the rip, like a bank
No,
or something,
no, banks do generate money.
but there's also the overhead costs to start the and you mentioned
10,
how
10 million.
yeah, you
It
mentioned how
costs
much it
$10 million.
costs.
dollars. It costs $10 million. Well, my point is that if you're able, the most of the time, the bureaucratic red tape is the money.
Hmm.
It's not the shit that you have to have like in place. It's the money that most people can't get around, can't get past.
Well,
And that's where a lot of that is.
well, and so that's where I'll say, because a lot of times they're looking at it like, okay, I start a bank. What is my pathway to making money with this? Because I know they generate money. You get what I'm saying? We both know they generate money, but
Mm,
the frame of reference we're looking at is this athlete is transitioning from their career where they were receiving a check weekly, right?
mm,
And so I go out and hoop, I go out and score a touchdown, I go out and play the game. My check hits my account, and so they're basically getting paid to play. Endorsements. I show up in the commercial, they send me the check, right? So you know exactly what you have to do to make the money, right? Now let's take that same athlete and let's say he does put that money and says, "I'm going to start a bank." Can you explain to him in two sentences the mechanism by which that money is going to pay him? Because we know it's going to come, but there's a whole learning curve to figure out how that money is going to hit your account,
mm.
if that makes sense. Whereas if I buy a franchise, if I buy a franchise, and it ties into the other point I had, but if I buy a franchise, it's a lot easier to know how I'm going to get paid off of that thing, right? And a lot of times, and I can speak from a point of knowing how this works. You get the pro athlete in your family. The first thing people want to do is they have every single business venture that they want them to throw money behind and fund. And so athletes who do have a control of their money on the front end and have the discipline on the front end to make sure that their money that they make, it ends up lasting a lifetime, they end up getting blitzed with so many business ideas that they're super, super trepidatious about taking on any new things that they can't necessarily clearly see how they get paid out of it. That's what I'll throw in there. I'm not saying that's a justification, rationalization, or anything, but there's a specific framework that I think that needs to kind of get put out there, because I know how banks make money. You know how banks make money. But if we're talking about somebody who's never had any experience on that front end, there's a whole learning curve. Like, how do I get paid out of this? If I put $10 million into this thing, how does that pay me?
Okay, so I'm just looking up here. So on average, for instance, it takes 3 to 4 years, excuse me, 1 to 3 years for a franchise business to become profitable.
Mm-hmm.
1 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for a majority of them. Now, now having a bank, on the other hand, now I mean, and again, they're not necessarily franchises. Well, I guess they are,
Yeah.
whatever. Because U.S. Bank is I'm sure is a franchise. You feel? So I'm very interested in this now. This is gonna actually to make money. Hold on, owning a bank. Hold on 1 second.
So while you're looking that up, because that's
Again, that it takes about the same. Um, it takes about the same amount of time. While startups are still usually high, new banks usually receive 10%. They receive a 10 to 15% return on equity by year 3.
Yep.
So initial hurdles, the regulatory approval process for starting a bank could take a year or more, requiring extensive capital, sometimes 10 to 30 million, and a lengthy 32 pay a lengthy 32-month payback period or whatever. So again, the reason why, and look at this right here:
Mhm.
risk of failure. The industry is highly competitive, and many new banks struggle to survive, with over half of some cohorts failing within 2 decades.
Mhm.
So within 20 years, certain banks will actually fall off
Mhm.
within 20 years. So, or again, you're going to get bought out by somebody,
Yeah.
right? So,
And
huh,
and
that's
so and let's think about it, because if I'm starting a bank, right, I have to go through all the regulatory requirements, but then I have to make sure my staff is trained and maintains their training on this stuff, and that costs money. And so now I have to onboard all these staff and make sure that they're falling within federal and state required banking requirements, and they're fully competent on that. And I can display what their training is. And so now we're talking about the initial $10 million investment. Now that's another $10 million on top of that to make sure all your staff are up to date and all this other stuff. Whereas I open up a franchise, the training is, how does this person run the fry machine? You know what I'm
okay.
saying? And so I think there's different layers to it. Both of them could work, but it's different pathways to money. And I think a lot of times when we disconnect the cause from the effect, people end up getting lost in the sauce.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what it is. Because I look at it like this: like if you wanted to start it, the most valuable from a fast food standpoint, the most valuable franchise, the one that makes the most money and has the highest success rate, a runaway is Chick-fil-A. Not even close. It's not even close. The reason why is to be a franchise owner at a Chick-fil-A, if you're it's owner operator, you can't hire managers within a specific, like you have to be the manager on site running the restaurant for a long time until they allow you to hire a manager and be off site.
Hmm.
There's so many requirements on the front end to make this thing successful that this is an all-in gambit, man. You locked in. If you decide to get in Chick-fil-A, you're locked in. So you're there to open the restaurant. You're there if something goes wrong. Like, you're in there, and it takes a long time before you can extract yourself out of it, and you have to prove almost to um the franchisee, the franchisor, or whatever. You have to prove that that restaurant can sustain the same level of quality and expectation of the brand without you being there on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But they generate so much money. People that own Chick-fil-A's are doing really, really, really well. But on the front end, it requires a huge, huge time investment. And you
Right.
got to be you're basically doing uh, a combination of E, S, and B. You're doing all of those at the same time because you're the manager, but you're also owner operator. You're on fries. You're helping sweep the floor. You're helping take orders and all that other stuff. So I think that's kind of what the learning curve is. So there's an entire curve that goes along with it, is all I'm saying. And I think that's why some of the most successful basketball players I've seen transition, they jump into franchising. Lower barrier to entry, all it takes is cash. You know,
Okay. He does what now?
the some of the more successful basketball players I've seen jump into franchising restaurants and things along those lines because of the lower barrier to entry than like a bank would be. Because
Hmm.
even though
Yeah.
it's the same, it might cost the same amount. In terms of what you have to put into it, you front the cash, and you know they kind of help you build out the franchise to be successful. And there are different franchises. Some of them are a lot better than others. I was going to buy a franchise probably about 7 years ago. Um, And just looking at how the franchisor treated all the franchisees, I made a decision not to do it. Because basically the franchisor was positioning themselves as the main competition for the people that bought the franchises. Crazy work. They had an entire online ecosystem where people could buy the products directly from the company, and the local shops were competing against that.
Oh, okay.
And they were absolutely getting undercut by the online entity because they couldn't match the prices that the online entity could provide. And since they had to buy the same materials from the same sources as the online entity could always beat them on price. So, but yeah, that's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, for
Can we
sure.
I'll ask you, do you mind let's put a pin in Rich Dad Poor Dad for now. I want to come back to it.
Okay.
Looking at the time, I want to get into, let's talk American narrative and what's happening in Minnesota and the entire collapse of the American narrative. We talked about it before, and the concept is, for those that are the uninitiated, basically, when we talk about the American narrative or the collapse of the American narrative, what happens when the country no longer believes the story it tells about itself?
Well, I mean, for the most part, at least to me, I think that what happens, but this, I personally think that when something like that happens, um, you regroup and you restructure or whatever, and you retell your story or whatever. Because I mean, you only you only live up to it when you need to,
Yeah.
or if it's helping. But if it's not really helping, then you don't need to live up to it.
Well, so are you following like the stuff, like the most recent shooting in Minnesota and stuff like that, right?
With the Alex guy,
Yeah, the gentleman got shot on Saturday.
man, that was dirty.
So
Yeah, I saw that.
what we saw, and this comes from a journalism major and stuff like that, and propaganda. I talked about propaganda on my Tuesday night live stream, the different methodology of propaganda or whatnot. We were seeing narrative control. The administration was trying to control the narrative of what happened.
Oh yeah, I saw that whole thing. When they were
Before.
like, well, he came up there, he was extremely violent, he
Mhm.
was wielding a weapon. It's like, what? Like, you saw there were so many different angles of when he was first introduced, when
Mhm.
you first saw him, he had a phone in his hand. His other hand was up
Yeah.
or whatever. So, and they didn't know he had anything until he's after they maced the guy,
And
after he's trying to help this woman up. I mean, like that was a clusterfuck.
they didn't know that he had a gun until they had maced him, pinned him down to the ground. One of the agents went into his belt, went into his holster for a sidearm,
Grabbed
pulled
it.
it off of him, passed it to somebody else, and then shot him. And what I'm saying is this: instantly they went into narrative control because
Yeah.
they knew the
They killed
administration.
they
They
murdered that
knew
man.
how bad that looked. And so
They murdered that man.
what they did was, we are going to try to, this is a method of propaganda, and we've talked about this. This is a method of propaganda. So the goal of the propagandist, they're not necessarily trying to win an argument. They're trying to be seen and disseminate their message. And so they'll get on there and say something that is counterfactual, ahistorical, or whatever, knowing that it's an absolute lie. The goal is they're trying to reach the people that are inclined to believe them.
And
So that
right. Hey, think about that.
Yeah.
They're inclined to get you to believe the illusion that they're telling you.
Mhm.
So they're telling you, don't believe what you see.
Yeah.
Believe what I tell you.
Yeah.
Don't believe what you see. Because what you see, not what you saw. Believe what I'm telling you.
And they know that
Yeah.
most of the people that are inclined to agree with them off the rip are not going to go watch the actual video. They're going to go based just on what they've been told. The
Right.
people that is a propagandist thing. A propagandist they'll go on to one of these talk shows or whatnot, say something that is incendiary, that is false, short, pithy, and wrong, and they know that the audience may snicker at them. Bill Maher may crack a joke on them or whatnot, and ha ha ha, laugh it all off. They don't care about that. They don't care about looking good on television. They care about reaching the people that are inclined to agree with them. That small subgroup of people that think like they do. That's who they're trying to reach. And so when they came on after that shooting and we saw the video footage, they instantly tried to do narrative control and saying, okay, we need to reach the people that are going to believe what we tell them no matter what. And so we're going to create this narrative. We're going to trot out Bovino or whatever his name is. And he's going to say some crazy shit about, yeah, man, he charged at the officers and brandishing his gun, all kinds of other absolute lies, things that are absolutely not true. Anybody with two eyes can sit there and see what happened.
From start to finish.
He came out and lied about it, knowing that there's going to be a subgroup of people that will not go review that footage themselves. They'll take his word on it because they want to believe what he's saying to them. They need to believe what he's saying to them because believing anything else would upset their worldview to a point where it would emotionally wreck them. They would not know what to do with themselves. And so there's that group of people. There's people that don't really give a shit about it. And they're like, yeah, well, they want counter protesters dead anyway, and so they don't really care what happens to them. But then there's another group that they want to believe they're good people, they want to believe that they're empathetic people, but they're not going to go do the research to prove it for themselves because they may find themselves standing on the wrong side of things. That's what happened. They jumped out there and said, we're going to get up here and just tell an absolute lie, knowing that people aren't going to follow up on it. And so now all the fallback is the video footage is out. They got 8 different angles of this thing. And none of it supports what they said.
And none of it supports anything they said. None of it. No, correct. Yeah, I noticed that.
And now they're in PR mode. We're going to fire dude that's been the face of this and bring in Homeland Security dude. This is PR. This is my boy Nate said it. This is all PR, right? Like they're in PR mode right now. We are going to.
You have to be.
Yeah, we're managing public perception. You
murdered somebody.
Yeah,
you murdered a white boy in broad fucking daylight.
Yeah,
broad daylight.
Yeah,
and then you said, well, and then they keep bringing up the gun, which he's legally allowed to carry.
Yeah. And I don't think in Minnesota they don't have that law where you have to announce. Like I read that they don't have that. There's no really law on the books where
not unless you're in a car.
Yeah,
not unless you're in a car. Because I usually carry myself. If you come into contact with a police officer, you don't have to tell them anything that you got on you. Now, if you're sitting in a car, you have to let them know as soon as they walk up to the window, whether they can see it or not, that, hey, I have a weapon or whatever, right? But homeboy wasn't putting his hand, reaching for his weapon or any of that stuff.
He never had a chance to.
They tore his ass up beforehand. Yeah, buddy.
Well, and I saw a post earlier, and she got clowned for this, but she was on Threads, and she's like, "Can we just go back to regular police brutality?" And people are like, "So what's regular police brutality? When it's just black folks?
Yep.
Just black folks?"
Yep.
And she had to pull that down because we had these 2 folks killed by ICE in Minnesota, but there was a brother that got killed by an off-duty ICE agent in Los Angeles, Keith Porter Jr. We ain't heard nothing about him on the national news. And what's happening is the reason why there's such a hard reaction to this is because it's going to piss people off. It's going to piss somebody off out here. The expected recipient of the violence is not the right color. Yeah. The people they expect to be on the receiving end of the violence did not match people's expectations of race. They killed 2 white people in Minneapolis. That's not what's expected. That's outside of what the expectation is. Even though when it comes to people who are killed by law enforcement, while black people are disproportionately killed by law enforcement, white people are killed more frequently by law enforcement. It didn't match what people's expectation of who the recipient of the violence was. And that's why this is a major issue.
Correct. Yeah, because ICE for the most part doesn't. It's they're not even supposed to be messing around in our streets in general
No.
or whatever. Their main objective is border control. That's their job.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't got no business fraternizing with nobody who's not a so-called illegal immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And the fact that they're not coming to America, they're not coming in the same way anymore. They're good on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've actually been looking at the reports. They're not that you might have a few becoming like they were.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're good on that. Now
Well,
don't sit this one out.
and so understand this, because I have a different perspective on why ICE is in these cities or whatnot. I think that immigration enforcement is the secondary thing. What I'm seeing is the people,
Okay.
the cities that are being targeted are typically the city are all. If you look at if you pull up the voting history, because they already tipped the hat where they have Pam Bondi basically telling the mayor and governor, respectively, Minnesota and Minneapolis, if you turn over your voter data, we're going to pull ICE out of here. So
It said what?
if you turn over your voting data, we will pull ICE out.
What does that mean?
If they turn over all the data that they have about the voters and who voted for who, she said that we'll consider withdrawing ICE if you turn over your voting data. Why are those two things? Why do those two things align? Why? And so this is where my mind goes with this. So you're looking at where they're talking about positioning ICE. So they had ICE in LA, Los Angeles County, you know what I'm saying, California, Portland, Oregon, Minneapolis, Chicago. These are blue cities. Essentially what I'm looking at is this, and this is just and sometimes
What about Texas and Arizona?
Texas and Arizona, but we're looking at blue cities in red states.
Gotcha.
Blue districts in red states. Now, when you look at the budgeting, so ICE's budget this year, over the multi-year, they're receiving $170 billion over several years with annual increases. Meanwhile, the U.S. Marine Corps budget for last year was $53.7 billion. What I'm looking at is why would they be massing federal troops? Why would they be massing federal agents in cities and states that are blue? They're positioning federal agents in places that are unlikely to vote for whoever's in office, right? Who the current administration right now. He's already said we're trying to, he's worried. He thinks that we need to cancel midterms because of all this. We can't have midterms like this. That's what he said. My take on it is we're trying to mass federal troops in all these places that are unlikely to vote for us, and these big population centers unlikely to vote for us, because I believe they're 100% going to mess with people who are trying to vote. I think it's trying to depress voter turnout. Because you look at some of these cities where you have mixed neighborhoods, black and brown neighborhoods. More times than not, the voting centers are fewer and far between, so those people have to wait online anyway, structurally. And so if you have ICE walking up and down the line, detaining people they find suspicious, whether they're American citizens or not, or just generally fucking with people, you're going to depress voter turnout because people aren't going to want to risk it. I think that's what the long-term play is. Because why would you give this random federal agency more money than you give an arm of the military? You've removed filtering mechanisms like, is this person in a white nationalist gang? Are they covered with white nationalist gang tattoos? They actually removed that from the vetting process for ICE. Do they have a history with separatist militias. They removed that from the vetting history of people that are in ICE.
Oh, wow.
And so now you have a hyper loyal group of people that are untrained. They're not trained law. So a lot of these guys aren't trained law enforcement.
I mean, dude, most law enforcement ain't trained law enforcement.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And now they're specifically loyal. They're disproportionately loyal to the person in office, as opposed to somebody else. They're not loyal to the country. They're loyal to a specific person. We're going to mass them in these cities, and we're just going to turn them loose. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think that this entire thing is a way to try to depress voter turnout in specific locations around the country that they see as key.
That's crazy.
So that's what my take on it is. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but that's my take on it. And so when we talk about a narrative control, what are you going to see? You're seeing people lying, lying about provable, observable shit, like things that we could see with our own eyes. They're lying to our faces about this stuff. The people are masked up. You don't get a chance to identify them. They're acting with impunity. They're acting aggressively towards people with cameras. Now they're acting aggressively towards people who are armed themselves. Why is that? It's establishing control in this specific city. And now the public sentiment has turned so vehemently against them where they're starting to lose some public support. Now they're going to do the PR campaign. So I've talked enough. My thing about it is this. When we talk about what this does to the American narrative, what does this do to the American narrative? Because now we're saying, well, the Second Amendment is contextual, right? Is that what we're saying? First and Second Amendment are contextual. They're based on the context of the situation.
Yes.
That's the story we're telling ourselves, right? That's what we've known. But now we're seeing people saying, well, no, you can't carry even though you have a concealed carry permit, you're not allowed to carry your gun out in public now. Where did that come from?
No, that's just something that they have now, whatever, because it's to protect a particular narrative. Guns are fine. Guns are fine as long as it doesn't interfere with our narrative.
Have you read anything like this? Do you have any stories that come to mind?
I mean, this nonviolent shit gonna get y'all killed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I could think of that. Who's the say? There's also another book by this. I forgot what kind of professor she was, but there's also this other book talking about the Second Amendment and what it was made for. Can you find? Let's see if we can find it. But that's what the book was based on.
Well, and remember
the second.
While you're looking it up, remember that specifically the NRA, the only time the NRA was really for gun control was when it was the Mulford Act in California when Reagan was president. And it was to disarm the Black Panthers so they couldn't open carry in public. That was the only time on record they were 100% toward a gun reduction and taking guns out of the hands of citizens.
Right, but they weren't even talking about taking them away from the hands of citizens. They were talking about them coming into the building.
Yeah.
With like as an armed militia. Because here's the thing: if the government wanted to, if they felt that threatened by a bunch of Black people with guns, dude, they would have went in and wiped them out. They wiped them out because of some other reason. Other reason, go ahead.
It was permitless, so basically prohibited openly carrying loaded firearms in public. So it was just generally in public. They didn't want them outside because they were confronting. They were walking around, basically confronting. I mean, basically what they're doing is
in their neighborhood.
In their
they
neighborhood,
were patrolling their neighborhoods with guns because they knew that the police were shooting people just willy-nilly or whatever. But again, they didn't change it because of that. They changed it because the Black Panther Party went to the courthouse with that shit.
Yeah, it was a spectacle.
They decided to change it.
It was a spectacle.
For that reason, that's when they changed it. Whatever. Bobby Seale is still alive. You can ask him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they changed it. But again, they went after the Black Panther Party not because they saw them as a, well, technically because they did see them as a threat,
Yeah, they did.
but they saw them as a threat to a particular narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And that narrative is that these individuals are monsters, they're criminals, they're rapists, they're this, that, and the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to try to protect their own neighborhoods. That's not what they want. They need us for that.
Mm-hmm.
Although we shoot them aimlessly
Mm-hmm.
without any drawback, without any what is the word? Not qualifications. There's a word I'm thinking of. Anyway, so anywho, it was because of what they were doing for the community.
Yep.
However, you got to remember that the a lot of these social groups that we use today were created and funded by the Black Panther Party.
And that's what I was getting to. That's what I wanted to
Now,
talk.
you got to remember that food program that we have in schools technically is a socialist program.
Mm-hmm.
Was created by them. Before they used to just send your kids to school, or you send your kids to school, nothing. They didn't eat shit. And then eventually they come home and blah blah blah. And they eat your ass out of house and home, which still happens.
Well, and the free,
But that's where they got it from: free lunch,
free
free breakfast.
and
That's
health
where they got it from.
and free community health programs too.
Oh my god, the most important.
Free community health programs.
Free community health programs. You guys got to remember that before the ambulance, before paramedics, before all that, what was it before all that? Because they didn't have that at all time. They had what was that? The Black Freedom. There was a particular black platoon, and I'd say platoon like it's a war,
Mm-hmm.
that would go pick people up who were sick and take them to the hospital.
I know.
They had to learn CPR, first aid. They had to learn I think, is it triage?
Triage
They had
care.
to learn all this shit before they even got you to the hospital. The government, the United States government, saw how well that was working, disbanded it, and then brought in all white individuals and trained them to do what these other individuals
Mm-hmm.
were doing. So we have a long line in this country of America doing fuck shit and then hiding their hand and acting like you guys are just the way you are because of you.
There was
Not because of situations that you created. Like in general, I just did an essay last night, a narrative paper on and I'll send it to you too. But my narrative paper, the my it was based on I had this narrative that for English composition class, and the question was, or the assignment was, name something about you that like a rule or something that you have. Hold on, let's see if I can find it. Something that you use, something that you have that you live. Okay, here it is. What is one rule that you live by and why? And explain how you came up with it and how it helped you in your life. You want to know what mine was?
Well,
Mine was, and anybody who wants to read it, I will send you. We're only supposed to do one page. I did 3 pages. And my essay, God damn it, hold on, where is it? Okay, dang, maybe I gotta grab it again from something else. It was called, maybe this, yeah, okay, so now this is what it is. Hold on, maybe let me make sure. Yep. So this is called What Keeping Your Word Can Cost You.
mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the cost of accountability for the most part. And I'll send anybody who wants to Who wants to read my stuff? I'll send it to you. It's 2.5 pages, and I just explain how I found this, where I found it, why do I live by this particular rule. But keeping your fucking word. Your word gotta mean something. And if your word don't mean shit, eh, nothing about you is gonna mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Like that. For me, that's what that is. I can't speak for everybody else and what they do. I can only speak for what I know and how I live my life. But again, you can't be out here being a piece of shit and acting like um, doing fuck shit to people and then hiding your hand and act like you didn't have nothing to do with it. Which in our country, we see a lot of that.
Well, and so it kind of it's a and I'm reminded of it had to be firefighters either in Boston or New York during during the segregation or whatnot,
Okay?
and they would talk about how they would get called out to and these were firefighters talking about nightmares they were having, like post-traumatic stress from this, but they get called out to black homes and stuff, and they would just, and this was 60s and 70s all the way up into some 80s, where
Mm-hmm.
they get called out to black homes and let people die. One was talking very specifically about listening to the screams of a black toddler that they could have saved, that they just decided not to
Yeah, we're talking
because of
about the
racism.
same. We're talking about the same country who sanctioned using children as alligator bait. The fuck is wrong with you? No.
And
No.
so,
So anytime that our country says anything about moral superiority and fucking personal and cultural ethics, no. As Louis Farrakhan once said, America needs to shut its mouth when it talks about a moral hierarchy. Fuck that. You don't get to talk. Shut the fuck up.
well, and the idea that when people, it's like, I don't recognize who this country is or whatnot, and it's like, you got
Shit.
you got to understand. But again, it's narrative control, right?
Yeah, for
They may
sure.
not recognize this country.
No,
They may not recognize the country as something they're
no.
familiar with, but this is a country I'm intimately familiar. This is the side of
Yeah,
the
we
country I'm
are.
intimately familiar with,
Yeah, we are.
and so the idea that, well, I don't recognize who we are anymore. Well, this is who we've always been. It
Yeah.
depends on who the we is that we're talking about, and so.
And here's the thing, and nobody gave a fuck
Mhm.
when it was happening to everybody, when it happened to us. You know, I mean, you put some billboards up, uh, Black Lives Matter. No, they don't. Y'all don't give a fuck.
Right.
You just need a certain narrative that's in there with it. And the fact that Homeboy just equate Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization,
Yeah. They said
but
it was
yet, but yet said the Ku Klux Klan's not.
yeah.
And
And
they've been killing us since the fucking 1800s.
the Klan's
Think
not.
about that. They've been killing us since the 18. Where's my camera? They've been fucking killing us with impunity since the 1800s. And they're not considered a terrorist organization. But you know what kind of organization they are? A Christian one.
Mhm.
And God bless America.
And that's what we're talking about. It's a lot of this, a lot of the
Fuck
narrative
out of
depends
here.
on perspective
Goofy asses.
of and here's the thing, because I call people sheltered all the time on the internet, and they don't understand what I mean by this. I had a hard life. I had X, Y, and Z. Okay, but did you do that while you were black? Did you do that while you were brown? Did you do that while you're immigrant? Did you do that while you're gay or whatever? Do you do that with another group that is marginalized? And did you have a hard life while also having this other socioeconomic thing over your head, or
Right.
did you just have a hard life? Like, I remember very clearly. So growing up, I grew up in kind of a mixed neighborhood, right? And the poorest family on our block were white. And we still played with, we were kids. We still played and stuff like that.
Hell yeah, yeah, for sure.
I remember very clearly. Now, this is the poorest family on the block by a wide margin, right? Um, you know, a white family on the block, they didn't have a whole lot of money, but we still played like kids. And this little dude told us, well, you guys can't come in the house because my dad says black people steal.
Mhm.
So functionally, this family is doing worse off than everybody else on the block. But we're not allowed in his house because we might steal the nothing that he has that we have plenty of.
Here's the thing. I'll say it. When I was a kid, I was a fucking thief.
Mhm.
So I would steal your shit. No problem.
It-
I, I ain't got no problem saying that. Yeah, man, what? As a grown man in his 40s, I was out here doing some shit. We don't need to go into it, but I was.
and so he's telling us, and he's been in our houses. He's played with us. Our parents have fed him. He's hung out with us and stuff. He's come over and played video games and everything else.
Yeah, that part.
But we're not allowed in his house because his dad is convinced that we are thieving in inferior people who are just trying to take what they have. And that was one of the very first sobering, like it was one of the very first times, like I remember very clearly going up to the Viking ship and getting into fights with getting into a fist fight with some other kids that didn't want me in the pool because they were like, your hair grease is going to get in the pool and blah blah blah, and we ended up getting into a fight with them. Like, this is when I was like 8. But that was a narrative that his dad was carrying forward
Right.
about what the black people in the community were going to do. Even though he had less money, less resources, he lived in the raggediest house. They had less money than anybody else on the block. He wouldn't let us in his house because he was scared we were going to steal something, even though his son came and played with us at our houses all the time.
Right. Yeah, but he's not. I mean, they're white. They're not going to steal anything.
Yeah.
You will, because it's in you to steal. That's what's in you.
Yeah.
I mean, although most black people wouldn't be here if you weren't stolen
Yeah.
or sold off by somebody else. So I mean, it all works itself out.
And
But
that's and,
Brian, here's the thing: you're a thief.
yeah, and that's
Stop
what it was.
stealing shit, and you don't have to worry about somebody hating your goofy ass.
Right. It's like, bro, and that's what I'm saying, bro. So the narrative that his dad was carrying forward that black people steal, even though we allowed his kid into the house and played with them and didn't discriminate against him or anything, treated him like one of us, fed him, made sure everything was taken care of. Our parents looked out for him, and he had so low regard for us. And that was narrative. That was the narrative that he was operating as a framework that he is
Yeah.
navigating the world with. And his dad was old. I don't know if he ever came out of that. I doubt he did. But this is what we're talking about here. His dad told a story to himself and believed the narrative, and that informed the way that he acted in the world. And I think maybe that's the piece of it. America has a very specific narrative that it tells about itself, and it drives how America acts in the global South, how America acts domestically. If you're trying to explain to people that aren't from here how internal colonialization works,
Mm-hmm.
their minds don't really wrap around it.
Right.
It's like, no, you guys got to understand, just because we're Americans doesn't mean that all Americans are on equal accord or all of them have any ability to prevent the imperialism machine running. And so, specifically arguing with somebody from Venezuela, talking about, well, you guys are coming over and plundering our oil and stuff. Well, guess where they're refining the oil? They're refining the oil in a black neighborhood to give, and everybody's going to get, putting cancer-causing materials in the black neighborhood down in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
That imperialism is really working right for those black Americans right there.
Right.
And so there's like, we talk about stuff that America does to other countries in the global South, but then also everything that it does in the global South, it also practices with populations here too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a multi-layered thing. This is the oldest. This is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the oldest surviving, longest running colonial experiments in history. Is the Americas? Am I being mistaken in that?
Define what you mean by colonialism.
So look at like Algeria, where Algeria was a colony of France, if I'm not mistaken, right? Nigeria was a colony of the United Kingdom, right? They overthrew them, and they still have vestiges of it, but they overthrew them and self-governed, right? America.
I mean, if you look at North Africa, no, not necessarily.
But look at
Like Al Jazeera,
Algeria.
Algeria. I'm sorry, Morocco, like all of North Africa. Those people are not Africans.
Yeah,
They're Arabs and Turks, but they've been there for longer than America has been America.
but I'm saying, are they still under control? Like, are they still under control of a foreign body, or do they self-govern?
That I'm not sure. I know that they had that whole thing with the Arab Springs,
Yeah.
so they are associated with Arabia in some way.
But look at the United States. So we have indigenous people to this country.
Okay,
Then you have black people in this country.
okay.
Neither one of us had a choice to be here. Indigenous people were born here. Black people were drug here, right?
Some, quite a few were,
Yeah.
but you also got to remember there were already black people here before Columbus came here.
So what I'm saying is this: when I say it's one of the oldest colonial experiments, this is still a colonial. This is still a colony. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, I mean, it's
Okay.
self-governed now, but we still we're still forcing people off of their land, and like we still take ownership of land that doesn't belong to us. Mexico, we basically cut Mexico in half and said, now you are New Mexico, Arizona, and California, and Texas. You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of the longer running colonial endeavors in the history of the world, and there's specific stories that have to exist in order for this edifice to continue. Like, in order for
Correct.
this thing to continue, there's specific shared visions of it. And it used to come out in Cowboys and Indians on TV, where the Cowboys are the good guys, Indians are the bad guys. It came out in the happy slave shows, where the slaves are just happy to be there and happy to be of service and stuff like that. There are very specific frameworks and narratives that they rolled out so that the people who benefited from all this stuff didn't feel bad about themselves.
Right.
And America has operated off of that framework for a long time. That's whenever somebody says, I don't recognize us anymore. Where you been?
Yeah.
So I'm way off of my outline, but so what happened is we're talking about the Minnesota thing and some of the narratives that are collapsing, where typically we're used to the federal government and local governments working in concordance with each other, not working in opposition towards each other, right?
Okay.
That's a narrative in and of itself, that the layers of government exist symbiotically and they're not at odds with each other. That narrative is now up in the air because
Okay.
the governors of Minnesota are actively rebelling. The governor of Minnesota is at odds with the executive branch. That's not normal, what we normally encounter in this country. Even though when you have different parties, typically the governors do work in concordance with what the executive branch is doing. Now we're actually saying you guys are working against us. Like, there's all kinds of different things that are getting turned on his head. And so America's classic story is the rule of law, rights protected, government bound by limits. Are we seeing that right now?
Not to me.
Are we seeing rights protected? Are we seeing the government being bound by limits?
Yeah, I mean, whatever's going on at this probably present moment in time, I'll tell you like this, man. I don't know what's happening, and I can honestly say like I ain't never seen nothing like this before.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. The brutality, the just being mean. I know this might piss a lot of people off, but dude, like these certain people have been pieces of shit for a minute.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and I'm not gonna lie to you, like it's. I'm not gonna say it's cool, but I'm just saying like it's about time for y'all to see the type of monster you are to yourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that like what happened to this dude was like wasn't like that it was just that what happened to Renee Good wasn't just. But at the end of the day, like let me put it out there, bro. What the fuck are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Like off top. Y'all wanna know about the Epstein files, which nobody's talking about Epstein files anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But think about that. I just want you to think about it. You're not talking about that anymore. And even if we were talking about it, what the fuck are you gonna do about it?
Narrative control. They got
There's
control.
nothing you're gonna do about it. We can talk about Renee Good. We can talk about Alex, whatever his last name is. We can talk about what's his name, Kevin, whatever. You can talk about all these people that ICE and whomever else is gonna wipe the fuck off this earth, and you ain't gonna do shit about it
Well,
because we're seeing that now.
well, and I've said it, like ICE is
So,
essential. A
oh,
lot.
I did have one more
Yeah.
thing now. Where's all these militia groups that was talking about once the you're not gonna tread on my constitution?
I'll show you.
Where the fuck are you at?
Hold on one second. I'll show you. I'll show you real quick. Okay.
Like you're not gonna take my rights away. Where the fuck are you?
You want to know where the militia groups are?
You're not gonna stomp on my flag.
You want to
Where
know
are
where?
you at now?
I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you where the militia groups are.
Our government is now a militia. So where are you at to help fight this shit? I'm just saying, like, and I know what you're about to show me, but again, some of them are not there. Not
Some
all
of them
are there. Not all of them.
Some of them aren't.
Yeah,
but
some of them are. And I'm not saying that they're not. But the shit that's happening now, they getting popped too. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think a few more of y'all need to go. It's
So
what ain't that what what's his name? The Kirk guy?
Yeah.
And didn't he say that in one of his speeches that in order for the Second Amendment to work, a few of y'all gotta get popped.
So where the militia groups are is wait a minute. Why isn't it showing that? All right. So this is where the militia groups are. Why isn't it showing this? Fearless?
This is why you gotta. Okay, so here,
That's weird.
I had to stop my screen.
Yeah,
that's why.
That's where the militia. That's where a lot of the militia groups are. I'm gonna tell you why. $250,000 a year is a hell of a retirement plan for a white nationalist.
Yeah,
that's a phenomenal retirement plan. If you are driven by hurting people or purifying your country, that's a heck of a retirement plan. And so that's where a lot, I'm not saying all, but that's where a good number of these militia groups that don't tread on me folks are, because a lot of this isn't necessarily rooted in rights protection. It's controlling who gets access to what in the country, who is on top of the pecking order,
right?
Who is the person that is the gatekeeper, who's in charge. That's what a lot of this is. A lot of the militia groups, it's never really based on it, because if that was the case, they would get active when Philandro Castile got killed.
Say that again.
If it was about don't tread on me, Second Amendment, protecting rights and everything, a lot of those militia groups would have got super active when Philandro Castile got killed.
Yeah,
for being a gun owner who's within his rights, who was gunned down just for doing what he's supposed to do and tell people that he had a gun, telling the police that he had a gun. Off the rip, they shot him for it, and so
and then they excuse the cop for it.
Right. So they would have been active when you see civil injustice, where you see entire law enforcement agencies, local law enforcement agencies under federal watch for violating people's rights en masse. They would have been active. They're not active in those times because it's never been about my right or your right. It's about what they feel their birthright is. And so they ain't ready. Like, they're trying to purify the country. They're trying to maintain the dynamics or the caste system in this country. They're not about getting out there and protecting people's rights outside of don't you dare tell us what to do kind of rights. And so they're not, there was no solidarity, because if it was, they'd be in solidarity with they would have been, if that was the case, then the KKK would have been in solidarity with uh, AIM and the Black Panthers and stuff. But it's not. It never was about that. It's never about freedom or anything along those lines. It was about control.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Fran Hampton was getting a lot of those groups together. I mean, I know he was messing with the Aryan dudes because he
Yeah.
started to understand that their play was the same as everybody else's.
But there was a breaking. There
Yeah,
was a breaking point because I know what you're talking about, the American Nazi Party dude. But there was a very specific breaking point, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But there was a breaking point where those groups said, "Okay, we're not going to work with you," and it
mm,
was something that was he. It was some specific thing that he was on, where they're like, "Absolutely not. This is not going to work."
yeah.
And so
I
it's
mean,
never.
right, but he also died quickly
Yeah.
as well. So again, it's not even the fact that they wouldn't have messed with him. I mean, that probably even could have been worked out.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they popped him early before he really got anything started.
I don't know if, to me, in my mind, I don't know if it'll worked out, and I'm gonna say why,
Probably not.
because I'm thinking that their destination was a ethno state, was a white ethno state, and that doesn't align with any revolutionary group from of marginalized people in
Yeah,
America.
no.
That's not going to align, that because those two ideas can't coexist. They want a white ethno state and other people want their freedom and the same concordant, same amount of rights that other people have, and that doesn't happen in a white ethno state. If you look at
Isn't that
look at South
crazy?
Africa.
Like, motherfucker, you sit there and eat the same nasty ass fucking food. You sit there and look at the same type of people, and most of the violence
Mhm.
that you're going to have is going to be within your own group.
George
The
Lincoln
murders that
Rockwell.
you have will live or are going to be within your own group. Most, and again, I mean, look it up. Most sexual predators are white.
Hmm.
Most serial killers are white. Most
So,
rapists are white.
so
So you want to be amongst those group of people that are the highest when it comes to violence against another person or children in general. Fuck that.
well,
Like, what's your food nasty?
and so here's the thing though. So I'm looking at it's because
Taco night.
it's George Lincoln Rockwell, right? And the point
Okay.
of agreement that he found was, all right, so I'm just going through it. He viewed black people as a primitive race and supported the resettlement of all African Americans to a new African state. So he found some alignment with um he hinted at alignment with some black nationalists who were about repatriating, right? Getting out of America, finding our own state. That's where he found that point of agreement. But it was never about shared rights or us all having rights. It was,
Oh yeah, no, I never said that.
oh no, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
And that's why I'm saying with these
no,
militia groups, for these militia groups, they're in the same mold. They don't really care
right,
about rights for all of us. They want to protect what they believe is theirs through birthright.
right. So then, if the Native Americans decided one day that they want to wipe them the fuck off the earth, would they be in? I mean, if you were keeping that same energy, would they be okay with the natives saying we want you off our fucking land? We want you to leave. And if you don't leave, we'll eradicate you.
Oh, no.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, you don't get to you however whatever energy you keep on one degree, you gotta keep that energy for the same thing. And that's the problem with white people keeping their fucking word in general. Like in general. Motherfucker, you say one thing and you do something different. And then you wonder why people fucking hate you. And again, here's the thing. I was just looking at so did you know what the panda stamp is?
Uh-uh.
The panda stamp is this stamp, this card that they use in China. So Visa and MasterCard are accepted everywhere. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In China, they're like, they got tired of America putting sanctions on them because any transaction that would happen would be routed to New York and then route back to whatever their country was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they decided that they would just create their own currency type thing. So it's called like the Panda Stamper card or whatever, where it's rerouted to Shanghai and then it comes back to them, right?
Hmm.
Why is this important? Because China just recently purchased oil from somebody using that currency. That has never been done before.
Hmm.
Never. So, again, why is that important? Because if other people say, you know what, we don't really need y'all no more, we're gonna have a problem.
Right.
Like we can't afford. I mean, unless they just want us to be isolated from everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I'd love to know how many people are leaving America and just going somewhere else.
I mean, I
Like
know
how many people are leaving versus how many people are coming here.
I know a couple of people that are trying to actually actively get up out of here, and some of them have successfully left this place. Um, I don't
Want to
know.
go to Africa?
Africa, I know somebody down in, who met somebody who's down in Mexico, and that's where they're based out of. They traveled back to the
Mm,
states for business stuff, but they lived in Mexico and things along those lines. Um, the entire milk and honey thing and the land of milk and honey stuff, specifically for people that are migrating here, it can be a narrative that brings them here, but it's not going to be a narrative that endures. And when you talk about people that live here, specifically Black folks that live here, we're artificially placed on the bottom rung underneath whoever else comes in.
mm. A permanent underclass.
Perpetual underclass. So no matter what immigrant group comes in, we're always going to be under considered to be less than here,
Mm,
regardless of what we accomplish and stuff like that. Um, it's interesting to see how people's perceptions of what this country is about shift over time. They
right.
come here, it's been sold as the land of milk and honey and everything, and then they come here and they realize, wait a minute, so I'm above them, but I'm still down here. I'm above this group down here that their media has told us are lazy and shiftless and untrustworthy and all this other stuff. I'm above this group down here, but I'm just here now. I know that there's specific whiplash. There's Nigerian families that are experiencing that whiplash as they come over here and their kids end up becoming Americans essentially, and their kids end up identifying more with Black Americans, and the parents aren't. The parents are still living through whatever their post-colonial experiences
I mean,
with
well, yeah,
Great Britain.
because they've been shown or told something for so long that these
Mhm.
individuals are amazing people. I was watching a talk once where, and you've probably seen it too, where the speaker was saying, dude, show these African nations what you are.
Mhm.
If you don't want them coming to your country, show them what you are
Show them what they can expect when they come here.
and show them exactly what they can expect. Don't sit there and act like you're helping people. And then when we get to your country, you're horrible individuals. You're fucking monsters. So show us that there so we know not to bother you.
Well, and differentiate, because the thing
Right?
is,
I mean, I think like great one of top 10 greatest speeches I've heard.
and I think one of the things is a lot of these cats will come over and they know that they're culturally distinct from Black Americans in their household and stuff like that. But us and them aren't the ones they need to worry about. You need to worry about whether these people over here see you as just another Black person, which they do.
Because they do.
They do. And that's really jarring. It's really jarring for some of them because they see themselves as we're culturally different, we're not the same, and blah blah blah. But
Which and they would be right. They
and
would
that's
be
why
correct.
and that's why
You'd be
the
correct.
that's why I talk about, all this was it diasporic dialogue and all this wars between the diaspora and stuff like that. Um the African diaspora. It doesn't make any sense because at the end of the day, once you get to America, they all see us as this here anyway.
They don't know how to differentiate. I don't know how to differentiate.
Right.
If I saw two people, one from Germany, one from Greenland, I wouldn't know the fucking difference.
Well, I mean, you could go to Ghana. Like, I could pull up images of people who live in Ghana right now, and you see somebody who looks like your cousin.
Right, that part.
You might see somebody who looks just like you. And so, what I'm saying is the expectation doesn't match what the reality is, and a lot of times, from Black folks that immigrate from other countries, there's a whiplash that happens because they see themselves as distinct from Black Americans. Some of them are hip. Some of them are hip to it and say, "Oh, this is what this is about." Okay, there's a shared struggle here.
Right.
Some of them ain't hip to it. And for those that are watching, this is conversations between two Black people who understand the dynamics of this. This is confusing as hell to other people who don't understand this. I'll be honest with you.
No. So let's explain it. So if we're playing a video game, like, this is a true story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna explain what we're talking about so everybody can understand racism for itself. If I'm playing a video game, I love to play NBA and I like playing NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I play, let's take NBA, okay? When I'm playing my game on the NBA, before I even start the game, I go into settings and I change everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I make my guys faster, better.
Oh, you move the sliders?
They do. I move all the sliders over to like 100, right? And then I put it so you can play on like pro, or you can play on like rookie.
Mm-hmm.
I play on rookie. So not only do I change the rookie thing from hard to like massively easy, I changed all of the strengths over as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I change everything, and then I'll go into my the opposite side, the computer side, and I'll take theirs and I'll put those instead of halfway, I'll move it all the way over to like they're at 25%. So I still get a little bit of competition, but not much. Three pointers, those are out. Twos, ones, you good all day long, right?
Right.
And then I hit save, and I'm gonna play that. So I go in, I go play this game. Now when I'm playing my game, I'm hitting jumpers from all over the place. I cannot lose, right? Now eventually, the other team will score. Eventually, one or two of them will come out of nowhere and hit a three.
Right.
Okay. Even a broken clock is. So you see my watch.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is. Even if it was broken, it'd be right twice a day. Okay. Now, how does racism work? Well, by the time I'm done playing this game, the score is usually 200 to like 20.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 4 quarters. I beat the holy shit out of it. Now the thing is that the narrative is I think that I'm better. Am I better? Fuck no. Because if I were to make this thing equal across boards, that other team would wipe the floor with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, how does racism work? Racism works when I take the controller that I had and I give it to someone else to play you. Right? So when you get the controller and play somebody else, it doesn't matter how well you are at playing. I'm still going to beat the shit out of you because I'm fucking better than you.
And that's playing life.
That's racism. That's how that works. So am I better than you? Fuck no. But on paper or on the system, I'm gonna beat your ass every time we step up to the board.
It's playing life on hard mode. It's basically playing life on hard mode versus easy mode.
Based on easy mode. And again, let's look at marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
How is it a class A drug? Same drug that of that crack and meth and heroin and all these drugs that will fuck your life up
Right.
is in the same exact bracket, the same exact class as those drugs. But yet and still, when everybody's like, hey, we need to do something different with that, laws start changing based on what everybody's wanting. And all of a sudden now these companies are like, well, yeah, well now they're not, marijuana's not as bad.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's not federally okayed, and this is the honest to God truth, go look it up. I want you to look it up. The only reason why marijuana is not federal, because state wise, they'll approve it.
Mm-hmm.
But federally, they won't. You want to know why? Because if they federally approve marijuana, I want to look myself, I want to look in the camera, you'd have to empty out a crap ton of prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a bunch of people in jail for weed
Yep.
and drugs in general. That is the reason why. Because contrary to popular belief, there are still murderers and all that stuff, but there would not be near as many people in prison
Mm-hmm.
for murdering people. That's, and again, if we were to make it straight across the board, you'd have more people in jail for white collar crimes than you'd have for killing people.
Well, it gave an entry point to, like you mentioned, it gave the drug laws, marijuana laws specifically, gave an entry point to incarcerate a whole lot of people.
Yep, black and brown particularly. And my guy talked about it. What
Mm-hmm.
was my man's name? He had a long name. Harry, I think his name was Harry something. It's funny. Um, I think he was Ronald Reagan's advisor.
Oh, I know you're talking about.
What's my man?
I can't remember. I know what you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure his name is Harry something. Anyway, he talked about that. So it's not like I'm just making this shit up. You had a guy who was talking about why marijuana is a class A drug, why heroin is where it is.
Well,
It has nothing to do with the understanding. It has nothing to do with the protection of the American people.
mm-mm.
It was to throw a certain amount of people in jail. Now, the byproduct of throwing these people in jail is now I get to make money off of them while they're there. If you want to change certain things, make it illegal to benefit from other people's crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. If I went out and started killing a crap ton of people, I could not benefit from those crimes. But yet instead of stock market, people on Wall Street they can benefit from my crimes.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And that's the entire, like,
I love this country.
it's all
You
contextual.
couldn't make this shit up.
It's all contextual because black people don't use marijuana at higher rates than white people if you look at the numbers and everything.
No, because there's more of you.
But the people that get arrested
The
mostly,
fuck?
the people that are typically getting arrested for it are black and brown people, and a lot of times it has to do with over policing. And so wherever law enforcement is going to be masked, wherever their most prominent is, where they're going to detect the most of any kind of specific crime. You know, I worked probation, bro. I did juvenile probation.
Harry Anslinger.
Yep, I did juvenile
Told you.
probation. And one of the things is, and we can wrap this up after this, I did juvenile probation, and one very specific conversation I had with a parent was this. They were looking at different school districts to put their kid into, and they were convinced that, and if you're not in Omaha, you're not going to know this, but this parent was convinced that their kid who had a drug problem, if they took them and put them in the Millard School District, they would be in better shape than if they left them in Omaha Public Schools. And I had to tell them, I said,
What?
I had to tell them, I said, let me explain something to you, because by then it was too late to do anything. But I had to explain to this parent, I said, if your kid has drug issues, the worst thing you can do is take this kid and put them in Millard.
Oh, wait.
Put them in Millard. And the reason why is because in the Millard school district, they have money and free time that kids in OPS didn't necessarily have. And they had resources to get from point A to point B that weren't necessarily contingent upon somebody else providing a ride or anything like that.
Right.
Their drug problem was more elaborate. It said Millard gets all the designer drugs, the higher level drugs, because there's more money there. And since the law enforcement presence isn't as strong throughout Millard, there's nobody there to police it. I said, you're taking this kid with a major drug problem and thinking that because you're putting them in a less diverse school district, that's going to solve the drug problem. You're introducing them to a more diverse drug culture.
Yeah, buddy.
And they're like, what? Yeah. Now I
had never seen drugs like I've seen in their communities. Never. I ain't never seen it like on that level, except for their communities. Never.
And now the follow-up was, and now I have to set up 2 times a week UAs. Like your kid's gonna have to, because you've taken them and put them into a school district that has a stronger and more elaborate drug culture, and now I have to do the UAs more frequently, and we're gonna have to pay for more panels on this UA because they can get a hold of drugs that aren't necessarily being detected at this point with the current panel. And so it was dawning on them, like the narrative that they had. So now we're back to narrative, right? The narrative that they had was and I'm using quotes here, the white school district, because Miller doesn't really represent that as much anymore. It's a little bit, it's a little bit more seasoned over there now. But back then,
not much.
Back then, they were like, this is the white school district. And so by putting the kid in the white school district, this kid who had a drug problem, I'm going to stall that out. And they're not going to be exposed to this. Like, you've exposed them to more because you're operating off of a racist framework. And that mom, I don't know, that was shortly before I left that level of case management. I don't know what happened to that kid. I feel I worried about that kid when I was leaving, like, ooh, his mom is clueless on this side of it. And I was like, you should have consulted me in the probation. You should have consulted me. And at the time, it would have been me and their probation officer or whoever else. Because my kids were juvenile probation, but I wasn't an officer. I was just the person that was there to track them down and chase them down and check in with them and do pretty much all the other work. I wasn't the state, I was a contractor, more or less. And my job was to keep track of these kids. It's like, you should have probably talked to us before you did this.
Right.
Because we could have told you, don't put him in Millard. For God's sakes, whatever you do not put him in Millard.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Somebody saying this from Millard, like, don't be concerned with there. Sorry, man. Y'all neighborhoods.
Y'all drug problem is wild.
Y'all drug problem is crazy. Same thing for Papillion, La Vista, I'm just saying, the worst things that you'd have to deal with over on the north side for the most part was weed.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Y'all got crack, meth.
New stuff.
Y'all got y'all don't even call it meth no more. You call it shards.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all got some. They just went up under the kitchen sink and started making shit.
I had a parent in one of my this is when I first started working with kids in one of my evening reporting programs. This kid had a meth problem.
I will start mine now.
All right, we're about done. This kid had a meth problem, and he was a meth addict when he came in. And his dad, he found a way to use, and his dad came in and said, "The black kids in the program gave my kid meth." Bro, you live over in Benson. I can tell you about 4 meth houses that are around you right now. It's like,
and they are not Negroes. So.
Yeah, it's like, take some ownership. Take some ownership, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, all right, guys.
Somebody else.
All right, y'all. So we're coming up on 2.5 hours. We gotta turn this over to Miss Anya so she can start her show. So we're gonna probably finish up Rich Dad Poor Dad. If ICE doesn't, well, I mean, if ICE doesn't kill anybody before the end of the week, um,
I know
that
we still keep going.
we're still gonna be on it. So I do appreciate y'all. I haven't even plugged anything we got going on, but um,
Yeah, you know what it is. Hit the QR code up there. You'll see us later.
yep. So we'll talk to you guys later. Trial and error. Peace.
Okay.